Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Hey, Ron is here. Welcome back for more SPTV Late Night Edition, where every night is a great night. Not to be in a cult. All right, I wanted to squeeze one more in before the day was over. I wanted to revisit a subject that has come up a couple times in the last week or so. Is Scientology actually banned in Russia? One of the most recent defectors from Scientology's C organization that I was speaking with was explaining to me how one of the reasons that recruits have dried up in Clearwater, Florida for Scientology's C organization is that they can't get any more recruits in Russia because Scientology is banned in Russia. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? I've seen a lot of headlines over the years, over the last 10 years of Scientology organizations being raided in Moscow, in St. Petersburg. I've even tried to get confirmation from current under the radar Scientologists, from Russian ex-Scientologists. Is it really banned? Is the organization really closed down, shuttered? No one's there, lights off, no Scientology happening. And I have not been able to get actual confirmation from someone who, for example, worked at the Moscow org or the St. Petersburg org and said, yes, they shut it. They canceled all of our contracts, meaning Scientology let us all out of our contracts because the orgs were shut down, or, we went to go work at a different organization in another country. I've never been able to find an ex-Sea Org member, an ex-Scientologist, or an under the radar Scientologist to tell me from their own personal first-hand experience, yes, there is no more Scientology operations in Russia. And so what I have is a handful of articles that I'm going to share with you to see what's been reported over the years and to understand where things stand right now, because the truth is it's not completely cut and dry. The idea that Scientology is, let's say the idea that certain Scientology literature is banned is not the same thing as Scientology being banned. The idea that the Church of Scientology of Moscow is not allowed to operate as such does not mean it is not allowed to operate if it were to incorporate as a business, for example, instead of as an organization. And another example that I'll give you is for why I have not been convinced up until this point that it would be accurate to say that Scientology was actually banned is because let's take the country of China, for example. Multi-level marketing is against the law in China. That does not prevent American-based multi-level marketing companies from having the vast majority of their revenue growth coming from mainland China. When you have countries like Russia and China, the fact that something is technically against the law doesn't mean it's technically not still happening. Okay, so let me just show you some of the articles that I found on this, and you'll see how we got to where we are today. This is an old article, 8 years ago. Russian Security Service conducts raids on Church of Scientology. Federal Security Service raid over a dozen locations in Moscow and St. Petersburg as part of investigation into alleged illegal business dealings. Russia's security service has raided over a dozen locations linked to the Church of Scientology in the latest step of a long-running battle between authorities and the U.S.-based organization. FSB said officers conducted simultaneous searches at 14 addresses in Moscow and St. Petersburg as part of an apparent investigation into an alleged illegal business dealings by the Church of Scientology in Russia's second city. Objects and documents were found and seized that proved the version of the investigators about the marketing functions for goods and services of the Church of Scientology of St. Petersburg in violation of the law, a statement carried by Russian news agencies said. Last November, a Russian court banned the activities of the Moscow branch of the Church of Scientology after authorities argued in part that since it had registered its name as a U.S. trademark, it cannot call itself a religious organization. Russia's Justice Ministry has long been pushing to prohibit the organization, which some countries treat as a legitimate faith, but others consider to be a cult. The ruling last year by a Moscow city court came after a low-level district court rejected Scientology's appeal against a Justice Ministry's decision not to register it as a religious organization. The Russian Justice Ministry registers religious organizations as well as NGOs, a requirement for them to operate. Last August, Moscow investigators said separately that they had opened a criminal inquiry after finding hidden microphones and cameras in the Moscow church premises. I cannot help but wonder if the hidden cameras and microphones were the ones that are positioned, that are hidden in the auditing rooms of every Scientology organization, well, particularly the brand new buildings, to record everything that happens in an auditing session. I mean, it sounds like they found offices that were bugged, but I'm guessing it was auditing rooms that were wired for audio and sound, which is totally normal for a Scientology organization. But to the Russian government, sure would look incredibly suspicious. The Scientology, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The European Court of Human Rights has several times ruled in favor of Scientology, saying that Russia violated its rights by refusing to register its churches in various regions. I may be very naive and ignorant on this, but I have never understood why Russia would give a damn what the European Court of Human Rights ruled about anything Russia was doing. But that's okay. There's a lot I don't understand, guys. I grew up in a cult. Okay. Next article that we're going to look at is much more recent. This is just from less than 5 years ago, September 2021. Let's see what this one says. Russia moves to ban undesirable Church of Scientology groups. See, right off the bat, I go, okay, banning undesirable Church of Scientology groups doesn't mean banning all Church of Scientology groups. Depends on how you want to interpret those words. Okay, Moscow, Russia declared 2 organizations linked to the Church of Scientology undesirable on Friday, paving the way for the group to be formally banned. So again, you can see every time I look for little hints that something official and widespread and sweeping and permanent has occurred, the language that I find always falls short. Okay. The Prosecutor General's office said the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises International and the Church of Spiritual Technology, which are both based in California, were a threat to the security of the Russian Federation. See, this is totally fascinating. The World Institute of Scientology Enterprises is, of course, a Scientology organization entity. It's a business entity. It is not related to the Church of Scientology of Moscow or the Church of Scientology of St. Petersburg. The World Institute of Scientology Enterprises is completely separate, organizationally speaking, from your standard run-of-the-mill city-level Church of Scientology. Also, the Church of Spiritual Technology has nothing to do, unless things are very, very different in Russia than here in the US, which is totally possible, nothing to do with your average Church of Scientology. The Church of Spiritual Technology owns, I got to get this right. I think the Religious Technology Center owns the trademarks, and the Church of Spiritual Technology owns the copyrights. The Church of Spiritual Technology also does business as the L. Ron Hubbard Library. And of course, the Church of Spiritual Technology is the entity that owns and manages and controls the handful of secret underground vaults that Scientology maintains to store copies of L. Ron Hubbard's materials on stainless steel, like indestructible medium, so in case of a nuclear holocaust. And it is famously one of these CST secret bases where Shelley Miscavige is working in Twin Peaks, California. So when I see when I see WISE and CST are banned as undesirable in Russia, I go, who cares? Yes, that's embarrassing that anything in Scientology is being banned in Russia. It's embarrassing to David Miscavige. But it doesn't mean the Church of Scientology of Moscow is banned, shuttered, closed for business. And I've always been looking for that actual evidence and proof and confirmation. And one of the reasons I'm doing this video, even though it is I am still desperately asking any under-the-radar Russian Scientologists who have personal experience and knowledge on what exactly is the current state in Russia. Is the Moscow org open? Is the St. Petersburg org open? Are there any Scientology organizations operating in Russia? Please, you can reach me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Okay, let's see. Russia has banned more than a dozen foreign groups under legislation against undesirable organizations adopted in 2015. Under the law, groups are typically first labeled undesirable and then formally banned by the Justice Ministry. Russian authorities have moved against the Church of Scientology in the past. In 2016, the Supreme Court ordered the closure of the group's Moscow branch. You see, ordering it closed is not the same as it actually closing. The Justice Ministry has also declared some of the group's literature extremist. And that's another thing where I go, some of the literature extremist? So does that mean technically the org could just get rid of some of the literature and they would be fine? Okay. Scientology was founded in 1954. Okay. Nobody cares. The group's critics say it is a cult and have accused Scientologists of harassing people who seek to quit. Scientology denies such allegations. Okay. Short, sweet, simple. That was September 2021. The next one's also September 2021. So we'll skip that one. Let's jump forward to 6 months ago, December 2024. God, did I even read this one through yet? I don't know. If I haven't, let's read it together in real time. I'll get rid of my face down here. Okay, 6 months ago. Russian court labels Church of Scientology in St. Petersburg as an extremist organization. Ruh-roh, that's not good. Not good for Scientology. Good for everyone else, though. It has been established that the religious group's activities were aimed at inciting hatred and enmity, humiliating individuals from various social groups, and encouraging people to abandon respect for social rules and laws. Well, that sounds about right. A Russian court has classified the Church of Scientology in St. Petersburg as an extremist organization, the city prosecutor's office said in a statement. Okay, good. We're going to keep reading, but I'm just telling you the way my mind is processing this stuff is like, okay, but just the Church of Scientology in St. Petersburg? Not every Church of Scientology in the whole country, you know? And so let's keep going. Okay. Quote, based on the prosecution's request, the Church of Scientology in St. Petersburg religious group has been designated as an extremist organization. Its members were spreading literature that has been recognized as extremist in accordance with the law. It has been established that the religious group has been operating in St. Petersburg for quite some time. Its activities were aimed at inciting hatred and enmity, humiliating individuals from various social groups, and encouraging people to abandon respect for social rules and laws. The city's joint court press service, in turn, said that the defendants' lawyers had strongly opposed the lawsuit being upheld by the court. They explained that the administrative lawsuit is remarkably illogical and pointed out that all those convicted by the Nevsky District Court had left Russia, and the group had ceased to exist in 2022. Oh my gosh. Let's read this one more time, guys. The city's joint court press service, in turn, said that the defendants' lawyers, okay, so Scientology's lawyers, had strongly opposed the lawsuit being upheld by the court. They explained that the administrative lawsuit is remarkably illogical and pointed out that all those convicted by the Nevsky District Court had left Russia and the group had ceased to exist in 2022. Okay, I mean, it doesn't seem to be ambiguous. It sounds like the Church of Scientology in St. Petersburg officially ceased to exist in 2022. How come we haven't heard from any of their staff members? I find it hard to believe that every one of those staff members are still in Scientology. If you were one of the staff members at the St. Petersburg org when it got shut down and you are now out of Scientology or you're under the radar, and you could please contact me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com and let me know what went down. I find this unbelievably fascinating. Okay, let's see. Church of Scientology, blah, 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 blah. We don't need to read all that. Okay, I guess that's all from that article. Okay, there's more. We're not done. There's more. Someone sent me, and thank you to the viewer who sent me this. This is basically a lawsuit, a hearing, a ruling from December 2021. So what? 3.5 years ago. In the European, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, the European Court of Human Rights. I'm going to share this with you. The formatting on this makes it very, very hard to read. We're not going to read the whole thing. I just want to show you the source material that I'm working from here, which is right here. The European Court of Human Rights. Let me try to zoom in. Church of Scientology, Moscow, and others versus Russia. And this is a judgment from September 14th, 2021. And this document does kind of summarize everything that has happened over the last 20 years in Russia. And the European Court of Human Rights basically says, that wasn't very nice of you, Russia. I took this entire document, though, and the whole history and the whole appendix and everything, and I dumped it into Grok. And I asked it, let me zoom up, scroll up and make sure I get my actual question correct. According to all of the text of this report, is Scientology banned in Russia? Pretty straightforward, right? And, well, let me see if I can easily screen share this with you guys. All right, let's read what Grok says. Based on the text from the provided European Court of Human Rights judgment on the blah, blah website, Scientology is not explicitly banned in Russia, but significant restrictions have been imposed on its activities, effectively limiting its operations. The judgment details three key issues: the banning of Scientology literature, the refusal to re-register the Church of Scientology Moscow as a religious organization, and its forced dissolution. Okay. So specifically, the Moscow org has also been dissolved according to this. Okay, I'm really unhappy with the level of zoom on this right now. Let me see if I can get a little better. Okay, ban on Scientology literature. In 2011, the Shelkovo Town Court declared certain Scientology materials authored by L. Ron Hubbard as extremist based on expert opinions, leading to their prohibition and confiscation. The decision was upheld by the Moscow Regional Court in 2012, and the materials were added to Russia's list of extremist materials. The European Court of Human Rights found this ban to be a violation of Article 10, freedom of expression, read in light of Article 9, freedom of religion, as the domestic courts failed to provide sufficient reasons or specific evidence of extremism, such as incitement to violence or hatred. Refusal to re-register. The Church of Scientology Moscow, initially registered in 1994, faced repeated refusals for re-registration between 1998 and 2014 under Russia's Religions Act. The authorities cited formal issues with documentation and later an expert opinion claiming the church's activities were not religious but social in nature. The European Court of Human Rights noted that these refusals were based on minor technicalities and lacked critical examination, particularly since Scientology's religious status had been recognized for years. Forced dissolution. Is it dissolution or it's dissolving? Dissolution. Okay. In 2015, the Moscow City Court ordered the dissolution of the Church of Scientology of Moscow, citing its failure to comply with registration requirements, the extremist literature ban, and its alleged non-religious activities. Again, the cynic in me still goes, okay, just because the dissolution was ordered doesn't mean it was complied with. And that's what I mean. I'm just looking for something to be like, yes, here's a photo of the org. It doesn't exist. It's banned, you know. Okay. Where did I? Okay, the Supreme Court upheld this in 2016. The European Court of Human Rights ruled that this dissolution was disproportionate and violated Article 11, freedom of association, read in light of Article 9, as Scientology was not given a fair chance to rectify issues and the grounds for dissolution. For example, minor documentation errors and the literature ban did not justify such a drastic measure. Conclusion. Sorry. Good Lord. While Scientology is not outright banned in Russia, the cumulative effect of banning its core literature, denying re-registration, and dissolving the Church of Scientology Moscow severely restricts its ability to operate. The European Court of Human Rights judgment indicates these measures were not justified under the European Convention on Human Rights, violating freedoms of expression, religion, and association. However, the Russian authorities' actions as upheld by domestic courts, effectively curtailed Scientology's activities, creating a de facto suppression, though not a formal nationwide ban. And that is why it is not so clear. It is not so cut and dry, black and white. And I am still not going to be completely convinced that Scientology does not have organizations operating in Moscow or St. Petersburg until I can talk to someone who is there or was there and can tell me firsthand what happened. Is that unreasonable? I don't think that's unreasonable. Yeah, there we go. I mean, Scientology was operating in Russia for so long. One of the reasons I feel like it's so important for me to truly achieve a high level of confidence about the truth of this situation is that the number of Russian Scientologists is surprisingly high. The number of Sea Org members from Russia and Ukraine, surprisingly high. It would be a very high priority for David Miscavige to somehow resolve the situation in Russia. And I'm just so surprised that it has not been easier to get more information about what is happening over there. I've kind of been trying for years. And even the Russian ex-Scientologists that I talk to be honest, don't have information. And I'm like, how is that possible? And it's because most of them have been here for so long. And I go, okay, so where's the Russians? Where's the Russians who know? Contact me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Okay, some starred comments, and we will wrap it up for the evening. Eloise95, wow, I actually agree with Putin on that one. The Oreo Ritz, aren't there a lot of Russians in Scientology in America, though? Yeah, there are. And the ones here in Clearwater seem to be very pro-Putin, which is why I've never understood how Russian Scientologists could be pro-Putin if Scientology is banned in Russia by Putin. Now, I did ask somebody about this recently, and they said, it's not necessarily Putin that banned it. These are local issues. These are regional issues. And I was like, I hear you, but I don't fully understand. But yeah. Okay. The pesty Hun. Evidently, Scientology didn't want to pay the necessary bribes to keep operating. Tia Tooley, welcome to the club with my ex-religion. Jehovah's Witnesses is also banned in Russia. Ren, again, Putin just trying to figure out how his government can profit from it. Tia Tooley, they put many Jehovah's Witnesses in jail because they didn't stop meetings and preaching. Wow. CO Bilf, Scientology's data collection is a geopolitical liability. Now that does make perfect sense. Yeah, especially since all the information, it's a US-based organization. Everything's being audio recorded. Everything's being video recorded. Everything's being documented in writing, auditing files, ethics files, yeah, that doesn't sound like something Russia would love a US-based organization getting on its citizens. Jessica LaBarber, room raid coming from Life After a Cult. Oh, fantastic. It's always something. I was in Russia in 1990 when you couldn't find a Bible, but you could receive reading materials from the blind handed out by the Moscow Baptist Church. Nothing there is ever what it seems. That is funny. Acute Pumpkin Cloudhopper. Hey now, how am I supposed to get anything done with Live After Live? It is a problem. It is a burden we all must bear. Mitchell Evans. Putin wants no other despots running anything. It's Putin or nobody. Fat Grammy says Wise was supposed to be disbanded legally. LOL from the IRS agreement. Interesting. The Hef. Who knew Russia was smarter than us? Uh-oh. CO Bill. This is a big win for Captain Bill. Gabrielle, escaping the cultiverse, Now, why do the Russians see what Scientology is and the U.S. can't? CO Bill, I wonder how Dave will spin this at his next birthday event or whatever. Unfortunately, everything we've talked about today is not necessarily new. Well, actually, now that I mentioned, this article that we looked at from December 2024 really seems to be perhaps a ruling from an appellate court just upholding the rulings of lower courts. But it sounds like if the Moscow and Russia orgs have been closed, that they actually have been closed for years, is the impression that I'm under. Farrell Cheryl, isn't there a contingency of Ron's org that operates in Russia? Oh, is that what CO Bilf meant earlier? I actually have no idea. Harry Mack, the European Court of Human Rights is a cancer. That is my opinion. Oh, hot take. Bridge, is this Brigitte? 1872 question. I believe the Ocala mission is run by Russians. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. The Ocala mission is the one that John Travolta owns, right? And you can have any Scientologists running the mission. But yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. There's just tons and tons of Russian Scientologists here in Clearwater, Florida. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here.